Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy, and here we are again for the last lesson in our unit on Revelation. So last week, we covered chapter 19 and looked at what was happening there. And so this week, we're actually going to look closely at the last chapters 21 and 22. But I thought since we skipped over chapter 20, I'd just briefly review it. So here we go. So chapter 20 starts out with the Satan being bound at the end of the War of Armageddon. And Jesus had come down with all the saints, and Satan gathered all the armies of the world against Jesus, and Jesus alone won the victory, and we saw that at the end of chapter 19. And so with Satan being bound then at the end of that war, then we go into the millennium, which is what is called the 1,000 years of peace, which follows Satan being bound up and put in a pit so he can't deceive anymore. And so Jesus is here, and he takes authority, and he takes the earth back. And so we see him ruling on the earth for 1,000 years. And because the saints came down with him on white horses behind him, so they're back on the earth too. And so really you can think of this time as the saints and Jesus are really going to be on the earth for 1,000 years, ruling here. It says it's a time of peace. This is where the whole pictorial image of the lion laying down with the lamb. And so just all of the orders of things are going to be changed and different. With Jesus being in charge and ruling, it says there's going to be no more war, and it'll just be a totally different time on the earth. But what's interesting is that this isn't after everyone dies. So we still have a human population, living on the earth, being ruled by the saints, it says. And so we still have nations, and it's going to be a very interesting time. But anyway, so that's 1,000 years of peace. And then at the end of the 1,000 years, Satan is released for a time. And it says he goes out and deceives the nations again. And so he basically rallies all these nations against Jesus. So there must have been some feelings there to begin with. But so he rounds up a huge army again. And this is where some people don't understand completely, but Satan brings a whole nother army a second time. So this is going to be a second war against Jesus that Satan leads. And so this time at the towards the end of chapter 20, then it actually says that they come, and instead of Armageddon, the meeting place, the second war, they're going to march up and surround the city of Jerusalem. And so at that point, it says fire comes down and consumes the whole army. So they were defeated again there by Jesus alone. And then at that point, the devil is taken and thrown into the lake of fire, where he is to spend eternity in torment. So that's the end of him. And then after that, it says there's a great white throne judgment that comes. And that's when everybody who was dead in the past gets raised, and everybody stands before the throne of God and gets judged for their works. And that's when the book of life is opened, and we see Jesus checking whose names are written in the book of life. And so at that point, at the end of that, everyone will be in their eternal destiny, whether in hell or in heaven. And so then we start in chapter 21, which is what we're going to do here. So let me pull it up. All right, so starting to read in chapter 21, the new heaven and the new earth. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be with his people. And God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. And he who is seated on the throne said, Behold, I am making all things new. Also he said, Write this down, for the words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of water of life without payment. The one who conquers will have his heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. Right, so for this study today, I don't have a whole lot of theology or anything to talk about, except that just going through this, I wanted to, let me back up a slide. All right, so at the very beginning there, we see that John saw a new heaven and a new earth because the first heaven and first earth passed away. So the first thing I was questioning was, wait, heaven passed away? Because I thought heaven was ready for us, where God was preparing a place for us. So what does that mean? And I found an article by Don Stewart that says, the Bible speaks of three heavens. The first is the atmosphere around the earth. The second is the sun, moon, stars. And the third heaven is the presence of God. However, all three of them will not pass away. The scripture makes it clear that sin entered only the first and second heavens, not the realm of God. God's realm was untouched by sin and remains perfect. The physical universe, however, has to be renewed. Therefore, it is the first and second heaven that will be changed. So I thought that was a good article, just explaining that, explaining what exactly is going to be passing away. And so we see really the physical universe that we see is what is going to pass away, because it's touched by sin, it's under the curse, and it's been affected by that. And so that's that. And then at the end of verse 1, again, then we see John say, and the sea was no more. And I know boat lovers, surfers, I can see them panicking at this verse because they're like, wait, what? But just some first thoughts is, so this is John that's recording these images, and the angel is showing him, really. And so this is really John's observation, and he notices that there's no huge ocean around the earth anymore. And when you think about it, John at the time is a prisoner on an island in the middle of the ocean, and so it was probably strongly on his mind to see the ocean, and what he saw in heaven was vastly different. And so that's probably just a reflection of that. The second thought is, why do we have an ocean on our earth? Because honestly, it's a huge amount of water. And when you really think about the purpose of the ocean on our earth today, the ocean is really a huge filter for our earth. The water cycle cleanses the air, it cleanses just land. It just washes away so many things. And then the sea creatures, there's so many sea creatures that are built as filters and can live on that stuff. And so when you take away the need for cleansing and the need for there needing a filter, you can see we don't in heaven, everything's going to be perfect. There's no real need for a huge ocean. Now, what this doesn't say is that there's no bodies of water in heaven, because I've read several accounts of people that have had visions or report of having near death or death experiences and come back. And some of them do report seeing like an ocean in heaven or huge lakes and things. So I believe there will be big bodies of water, just because there's people built that enjoy that. And God says there's pleasures forevermore in heaven. So I just see that as something God wouldn't take away from us. All right, so then we come into the description of the city, the holy city, New Jerusalem, and coming down out of heaven prepared as a bride. So this analogy of a city being prepared as a bride and coming to her husband, it really is such a picture of the relationship. It's a relationship picture, really. And when you just think about eternity in heaven, like God built us for relationship, and he built us and created us to enjoy each other forever. And so you just see that again, like everything that's important to God is relationship. That's one of the biggest things. So it's just really cool to see that, the new capital of heaven is going to be really based on relationship. And of course, so these descriptions, they really blow our mind, but what a perfect picture of perfection. No death, no crying, no pain, everything's new. It's just really quite incredible. So I just wanted to see. Okay. All right, and then let's go on to the next. All right. So starting in verse 9 then came one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues and spoke to me, saying, "Come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." And he carried me away in the spirit to a great high mountain and showed me the holy city Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, its radiance like a most rare jewel, like a jasper, clear as crystal. It had a great high wall with 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and on the gates the names of the 12 tribes of the sons of Israel were inscribed. On the east 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And the one who spoke with me had a measuring rod of gold to measure the city and its gates and walls. The city lies 4 square, its length the same as its width. And he measured the city with his rod, 12,000 stadia. Its length and width and height are equal. He also measured its wall, 144 cubits by human measurement, which is also an angel's measurement. The wall was built of jasper, while the city was pure gold, like clear glass. The foundations of the wall of the city were adorned with every kind of jewel. The first was jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth carnelian, the 7th chrysolite, the 8th beryl, the 9th topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls, each of the gates made of a single pearl. And the street of the city was pure gold, like transparent glass. And I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives its light, and its lamp is the Lamb. And by its light will the nations walk, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it, and its gates will never be shut by day, and there will be no night there. They will bring into it the glory and honor of the nations, but nothing unclean will ever enter it, nor anyone who does what is detestable or false, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. All right, so just some things to pull out here. So, an interesting city. So around the city is a wall that has 12 foundations, or 12 rows of jewels along the bottom of it. And it has 12 gates around the outside of it that are made of a single pearl each, it says. It's huge. So these dimensions that they give, people have calculated it out. And so we're talking about a city that's 1,400 miles on each side. And it looks like a cube. So really unusual. It's hard for us to picture. But then it's got this wall around it. And the wall is like 200 feet high and a little more than 200 feet thick, and goes around the whole city. And so just kind of crazy, amazing descriptions here. And there's no temple in the city, for God's already there. Now, it's interesting to note is that there is a temple still in heaven, though. There just isn't in the New Jerusalem city. There's no need for celestial light because God is the light. And so I really gave some thought to this because I was reading through this and I was really wondering, like, so everyone's in heaven. These are all the saints. And the city has a wall. Why does the city have a wall in heaven? Because obviously throughout the history of Earth, walls have been built around cities for protection. Pretty much it began right after Babel, when people started spreading out. They started not understanding each other, fear and confusion, so people started attacking each other. And that's when the origin of walls around city began. So these walls, though, they're made of costly stones, and they're built great and high. And so the question is, why does Jerusalem need a wall? Especially when the Bible says this, no evil thing will ever enter the city, that there will be no suffering and no evil and pain anymore. So what's the purpose of the wall? So the wall, when you think about it, so God is a God of symbolism. Like, he is really into pictures that have meanings and things like that. And so along with some of the reading that I did, I kind of think that the wall is very symbolic in that walls are for protection and safety. And there is a wall here, meaning that we will be safe forever, that God's protection is around us. But you notice that the 12 gates with the pearls guarded by angels, the gates are never shut, it says. They're always open. And so they're, even though, there's this wall like symbolizing safety, that it's still open and it's still not restricted. And I also read some things too, that some people think it's just to reflect God's beauty and God's glory and splendor. And so I think it's a little bit of all that, because it's just going to be so awesome. So at this point, I thought that, just reading about this, it's easy to talk about the Bible and read this passage a lot, and it's always hard to really understand it. But I thought I would share some eyewitness testimonies. So there's some books that I have, and this is probably going to be backwards. This book is called My Glimpse of Eternity by Betty Maltz. And I actually met her, but she had a sickness and had a death experience where she died for 90 minutes, I think. And then, and she went to heaven and saw heaven and experienced it and then came back. And so this book is her testimony about that. But I just thought I'd read a passage in it that just pertains to this. So in this section, she's walking with an angel along, she's going uphill towards a city on the countryside of heaven. And then she gets up to, and she's been following a wall. When the angel stepped forward, pressing his palm on the gate, so she had reached a gate at that point, an opening, oh, I'm sorry, I started reading at the wrong part. Okay, the angel stepped forward and put his palm of his hand upon a gate, which I had not noticed before. About 12 feet high, the gate was a solid sheet of pearl, with no handles and some lovely scroll work at the top of its Gothic structure. The pearl was translucent, so I could almost but not quite see inside. The atmosphere inside was somehow filtered through. My feeling was of ecstatic joy and anticipation of the thought of going inside. When the angel stepped forward, pressing his palm on the gate, an opening appeared in the center of the pearl panel and slowly widened and deepened as though the translucent material was dissolving. Inside, I saw what appeared to be a street of golden color with an overlay of glass or water. The yellow light appeared was dazzling. There is no way to describe it. And so that was a testimony that Betty Maltz had of heaven. And then I also have this book called Imagine Heaven, and it's by John Burke. And so this man actually did a whole bunch of research and gathered other people's testimonies about heaven and near-death experiences. And it's literally a whole book filled of other people's experiences. And so there were a couple that I wanted to read. All right. This one is a testimony by Dale Black. The wall to the city was not a single wall, but rather a series of walls layered next to each other. The wall was made of 3 outer layers, 3 inner layers, 1 higher wall in the center. At its tallest point, the wall was a couple hundred feet, and surprisingly, it was thick as it was tall. The wall was massive and stretched out to my left and right as far as I could see in both directions. The outer wall was greenish in color, with a hint of blue and a hint of black mingled with it. It was made entirely of translucent stones. Large, multicolored stones were built into the base of the wall in layered rows. A powerful light permeated the wall, and you could see all the colors of the rainbow in it. Strangely, whenever I moved, the colors moved ever so slightly, as if sensing my movement and making an adjustment. The 2 angels that had escorted me were still with me, moving along. I was eye level with the base of the wall now and no longer hovering above it, but standing in front of an impressive opening. It was an archway that seemed to be approximately 40 feet high and 30 to 35 feet wide. A tall, majestic, angelic being stood to the right of the gate. The entrance, or gateway, was opalescent in color, as if it had been made of pearls that had been liquefied and then solidified into the wall. The entrance was composed of this mesmerizing substance that also coated the entire inside of the opening as far as I could see. The ornamentation around the entrance included phenomenal detail. It was the most astounding sight I had ever seen. As I basked in the beauty of the adorned the gateway, I noticed large gold letters emblazoned above the opening. They seemed to quiver with life. The single line of letters formed an arch over the entrance. I didn't recognize the letters, but knew the words were as important as any words could be. I was filled with excited anticipation of entering that beautiful gate. I was immersed in music, in light, and in love. Vibrant life permeated everything. All these weren't just around me, they were inside of me. and it was wonderful, more wonderful than anything I had ever experienced. I felt as if I belonged there. I didn't want to leave, ever. It was as if this was the place I had been searching all of my life to find, and now I'd found it. All right, and then this one is a short experience by Don Piper. As we came closer to the gate, the music increased. Looming just over the head of my reception committee stood an awesome gate interrupting a wall that faded out of sight in both directions. It struck me that the actual entrance was small in comparison to the massive gate. I stared, but I couldn't see the end of the wall in either direction. I gazed upward, and I couldn't see the top either. One thing that did surprise me, on earth, whenever I thought of heaven, I anticipated that one day I'd see a gate made of pearls because the Bible refers to the gates of pearl. The gate wasn't made of pearls, but it was pearlescent, perhaps iridescent, maybe more descriptive. To me, it looked as if someone had spread pearl icing on a cake. The gate glowed and shimmered. I paused and stared at the glorious hues and shimmering shades. The luminescence dazzled me. So I think that's cool that several different people that have had different experiences at different times in history, and they all kind of have similarities in them. When they talk about these gates that are shimmery and pearlescent, and I just think that's so cool. So, and then in talking about New Jerusalem then, I wanted to just show you some of the pictures that I found. So here's some pictures, and they are kind of, you can see the foundation shown as layers of jewels. And down here it has layers of jewels here along the bottom. And so in the Bible, it describes kind of a cube shape, but then other people have thought, because it just refers to width and length and then height. And so some people have thought that maybe it could also be like a pyramid shape, or even like a mountain and just have a top. And so I just threw this picture in as another thought of what it might look like. But so very dazzling and sparkly and full of light and full of glory, of course. And let me see. And then the dimensions that they give, I thought this was interesting. So this is somebody where they made, in reference to a globe, they made a little square that's the size of the cube that's described in Revelation. And so this would be the size of the new city in comparison to our globe today. So you can see that there, and just how impressively big and massive this city is described as being. So I just wanted to read one more little story out of this. It's not a story, I guess, it's experience. And this one is a person named Ed. I don't see his last name here, but so he had an experience here. We flew through the starry heavens. On a path or ladder or stairway, we moved forward at great speed. I asked the angel, "Why did we stop?" "Turn around," the angel said, and I turned around to face a most amazing sight. My eyes feasted on a huge spherical globe. I fixed my clouded eyes upon a spectacular panoramic view of God's house. Our inheritance, paradise lost. The whole thing was bright and rich. Its sacred beauty filled my soul. The sphere is of pure gold, the angel stated. He knew what I was thinking because he answered before I could ask him. It's not like the gold on a watch or gold on a wedding ring. Heaven's gold is clear, yet having a golden look. I could clearly see through this golden sphere, a transparent gold. Though made of gold, there was a changing, multicolored effect playing upon the sphere. It was an awesome, colorful light show. Colors flashed like sheets of lightning. They shimmered around the golden sphere. I could see through the golden sphere into the most beautiful spring green land. Like an electrifying jewel embedded in the center of the circular land stood a city cube of dazzling, colorful golden splendor. Awesome rainbows of inexpressible colors flowed over, around, and into the city cube, more enthralling than any sunset or sunrise I have ever seen. The gold sphere itself does not shine. The light originates from a huge and colorful cube-shaped city. The angel explained to me that the city you see inside is New Jerusalem. It is heaven's heart. The Father and the Lord Jesus are inside on their thrones. The surrounding land is called paradise. The city's shape had the look of a colorful, bright cube. Its colors were bright. Its hues were more than the colors of a springtime rainbow. The colors were not those of an earth rainbow. Other colors dazzled, colors I have never seen. These new colors were indescribable. The diameter of the sphere is enormous. I calculated from the center of the sphere to the edge, there could be fitted 20 New Jerusalems. Therefore, the distance from the city to the outer edge of the sphere would be about 30,000 miles. The diameter of the sphere would be 60,000 miles across, and Earth is only 8,000 miles across in diameter. So those I thought were just fun to read because it gives a little more just someone else's experience that the Lord has shown them. And it just kind of, keeps your hope up that what we read in the Bible is really true. And I like that. I love the Bible. So anyway, and then I'm just going to touch on chapter 22. So then it goes in and talks about the river of life, which is flowing from the throne of God. And on both sides of the river of life is the tree of life. And it has fruit, 12 yielding fruit every month. There's 12 kinds of fruit. And so we see just such fertile imagery in heaven, and it's just amazing. It's just beyond description, really. And then really Jesus just ends the whole book with Revelation with reminding people that he's coming soon, like really soon. And he wants you to be ready. And he talks about promises, about reading Revelations and promises to those that are faithful and true. And then he gives warnings about taking away from or adding to the book of Revelation, just showing that its importance to him. And so we can really sum it up really by saying Jesus is coming soon. And when you think about it, when Jesus said that to John 2,000 years ago, how sooner is he going to come to us? So that's just a great reminder for us to stay ready, stay faithful and true, because Jesus is coming soon. So thank you again, and have a great week.